type of safety can they expect to see out of you?
Physical safety.
Look out at one on the toss. It's Jacobs, and he is.
Right now, Jalen Thompson is a Dallas Cowboy.
As of this minute, you are a Dallas Cowboy.
Handed $33 million to lead America's team entire secondary. But 7 years ago, the NCAA raced his final season over one ordinary purchase. And the only way he ever made the NFL was through a door the league has since shut for good. So how does a kid lose his entire senior season over something you can buy at any supplement store in America? It started in the summer of 2019. The summer before what should have been his senior year. By then, Jalen Thompson was already one of the best safeties in college football. He had started every single game for 3 straight years at Washington State. He was all conference. He was a kid scouts and projected as a solid mid-round pick in the upcoming NFL draft. He could have left for the pros after his junior season, but he wanted to come back for one more year to lead that defense as a senior and finish what he had started. That summer, Jalen took an over-the-counter supplement, not a steroid, something sitting on the shelf at stores all across the country, but it had a substance in it that happened to be on the NCAA ban list. And the NCAA does not care if it was an accident. It does not care that it was not a steroid. A banned substance is an automatic 1-year suspension. He appealed the ruling and explained what happened, but the NCAA denied him anyways. And just like that, the kid who had started 39 straight games lost his entire senior season before it even began. No team, no eligibility, and a banned substance flag stamped on his name that every NFL scout in the country would now see. To this day, that exact supplement has never been made public, but all we know is what it cost him. Everything he had built gone in a single phone call. But to understand how losing everything turned into the best thing that ever happened to him, we have to rewind. We have to go back to Southeast Los Angeles before anybody knew the name. Jalen grew up in the working class pocket of LA County that sits right next to Compton, Paramount, where he was born, Downey, where he came up. This is not the Hollywood version of California. No palm tree mansions, no beaches in the brochure. This is the part of LA where you learn early that nobody's gonna hand you any. He was the youngest of 3 brothers, and if you know anything about being the youngest of 3 boys, you know what that means. You get toughened up fast. You learn to fight for the last plate of food, for the remote, for the respect. Jalen was always the smallest guy in the room, and he was always trying to prove he belonged it. Football became the place he proved it. But here's the thing about Jalen as a kid. He was not some 5-star, can't-miss prospect that every college in the country wanted. He was a skinny defensive back who barely tipped the scales, the smallest guy on the field more often than not. He played both ways at Downey High, wide receiver and cornerback, because he was just a flat-out athlete who could not come off the field. And he could play. As a senior, he picked off 5 passes and averaged over 20 yards every time he caught the ball. He made the all-area dream team. He won a section title back at his first school, La Serna, before he transferred to Downey. The talent was real, but the offers were not pouring in. Jalen was a 3-star recruit, a good player, but not a hyped one. The big programs were not fighting over him. And when his recruitment finally settled in, it was not USC down the street or one of the Blue Bloods. It was Washington State, a school almost 1,200 miles away in Pullman, a tiny town in the corner of the country, about as far from the Southeast LA as a kid can get. So Jalen packed up and left everything he knew. Different state, different weather, different world. And he did not just go to fit in, he went to take over. And he did almost immediately. Jalen enrolled at Washington State early in the spring before he had even finished being a teenager. By the time the season started, he was not redshirting. He was not waiting his turn. He was starting. As a true freshman, he put up 51 tackles and led his entire team in pass breakups, and ESPN named him a true freshman All-American. The skinny 3-star kid from Downey, California was already one of the best young defensive backs in the country. And he was doing it for head coach Mike Leach in a program where the defense usually played second fiddle to Leach's high-flying offense. For a defensive back to stand out in Pullman, he had to be special. Jalen was special. As a sophomore, he got even better. 73 tackles, 4 interceptions, which tied for 3rd in the entire Pac-12. He led the conference in fumble recoveries. He made all-conference. Scouts started writing his name down. Then came his junior year and the watch list. He landed on the radar for Bednarik Award, which goes to the best defender in college football. He had done the math by now. A lot of guys in this position would have left. He had the tape, he had the production, and there were people telling him he could go pro after his junior season. But Jalen wanted to come back. He loved Washington State. He had started at every single game since he arrived on campus, all 39 of them, and he wanted one more year. He wanted to lead that defense as a senior, finish what he started, and walk out the right way. And you already know what that decision cost him. The season gone before it even started over a banned substance he never saw coming. Now here's where it gets murky, because there are actually two versions of how it happened. One account, the one first reported, says Jalen walked into a local nutrition store himself and bought an over-the-counter supplement. But Mike Leach told a different story. Leach said a guy Jalen knew worked at one of those supplement stores, brought the stuff home, and Jalen took it without thinking twice. Either way, it was not a steroid, and either way, Jalen had no idea. And listen to how Leach talked about him after it happened. Leach said, Jalen was outstanding, first class, an honest, straightforward guy, an incredibly hard worker with no moral character issue. That is the coach who just lost his best defensive back, going out of his way to tell the world that Jalen did nothing wrong. And Jalen never made excuses about any of it. Looking back on that whole stretch later, all he would say was that it was tough going through all that stuff during college his senior year. He didn't blame the store or the roommate or the NCAA. He was just a kid who lost everything and kept his head down. The loyalty that was supposed to be the right thing to do was the exact thing that blew his whole life up. And it left him somewhere almost no player has ever been. No eligibility left, no senior tape, and no normal way into the NFL at all. Here's what makes Jalen Thompson's draft story unlike most anyone else's. There was no draft night for him, not the kind you're picturing. No suit, no green room, no cameras on his face, no family crying behind him as the commissioner reads his name. The regular NFL draft had already come and gone that spring. Jalen had missed it because he was supposed to still be in college. And it was Mike Leach who pointed him toward the only door left. Jalen later said that Leach told him he would have to go to the league that he felt Jalen was ready for it. So Jalen took his coach's advice, and looking back, he said Leach was not wrong. That door was a strange, almost forgotten side event called the supplemental draft. If you have never heard of it, you are not alone. The supplemental draft happens quietly in the middle of July for players who lost their eligibility after the regular draft already happened. Most years, nobody even gets picked. It is the back alley entrance to the NFL. Think about the contrast for a second. Most players climb a stage. Jalen, he had to climb through a window. And think about what that day actually looked like for him. No stage, no cameras, no phone buzzing with a team's number on draft night because there was no draft night. Just a kid sitting at home in Southern California in the middle of July, while somewhere far away in a quiet room with no audience, teams typed in silent bids on the handful of names. And when it was done, one name had been called in the entire event, his. The Arizona Cardinals looked at the tape, looked past the supplement, and saw a starter. On July 10th, 2019, they bid a 5th-round pick, and Jalen Thompson was the only player taken in the whole supplemental draft. One player. The whole event, just him. About a week later, the Cardinals signed him, and Jalen Thompson was finally officially an NFL player through the side door on his own terms. And what nobody saw coming at that time was that after Jalen, the NFL basically stopped holding the supplemental draft at all. Not a single player has been selected in one since, which means to this day, Jalen Thompson is the last player ever taken in one. The strangest path into the league became a path nobody else would ever take again. But getting into the NFL and surviving in it are two completely different things. And remember, on paper, Jalen Thompson was never built to be a star. He is listed at 5'11", right around 190 pounds. For a defensive back in the NFL, that is small. He never even ran at the NFL Combine. He never got the chance. But here's what he can do. He can play deep safety, drop down into the box, slide out to the slot to cover receivers, and even line up outside at cornerback. He has lined up on the defensive line. He is the kind of player a coach can move around the field like a chess piece. Jalen put it simply himself. Guys that can all do the same things and move around the field, he said, it confuses the offense. But not everyone was, so people who liked his tape kept circling back to the same word, small. At his pre-draft workout, he measured in barely over 5'10" and 186 pounds, and scouts wrote that his lack of size and strength showed up against bigger blockers, that he could get washed out in the run game, that maybe he was only ever a slot guy and nothing more. Some teams had a 3rd-round grade on his talent. He went for a 5th-round price. The message was quiet, but it was clear. Useful, maybe. A real starter? Nobody was betting on that. Jalen showed up in Arizona as an afterthought. The supplemental guy. The 5th-round flyer. The depth chart in front of him had veterans on it, including a young star named Buda Baker, When the season started, Jalen was not a starter. He was a backup and a special teams guy. And then came the welcome to the NFL moment. In week 3 of his rookie year, Jalen was not just on the bench. He was inactive, a healthy scratch. He did not even dress for the game. The kid who had started 39 straight games in college was now standing in street clothes watching, wonder if he had clawed his way into league just to disappear. That is a moment that breaks a lot of guys. The doubt creeps in. You start to wonder if the doubters were right. But then the door cracked open. A few weeks into the season, the Cardinals released their starting free safety. Suddenly, there was a job available and a short list of guys to fill it. And Jalen Thompson did what he had done his entire life, and he took it. On October 6, 2019, he made his first career start against the Cincinnati Bengals, and he racked up 8 tackles in a win. A little over a month later, he picked off his first career pass, a throw from Jimmy Garoppolo of the 49ers. By the end of his rookie year, the afterthought had 57 tackles, an interception, and 9 starts. The supplemental guy was not going anywhere. And from there, the climb just kept going. In 2020, the Cardinals named him a starting safety, but the football gods were not done testing. In the very first game of the season, on the very first drive, Jalen went down with an ankle injury and landed on injured reserve for 6 straight weeks. He fought back, returned, and he held his spot. Then 2021 happened. This was the breakout. Jalen Thompson exploded for a career high of 121 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 7 pass breakups. To put that in perspective, that season he finished with the second most tackles by any defensive back in the entire NFL. Second, he was just a few tackles behind one of the highest paid safeties in the league. The Cardinals made the playoffs, and the supplemental afterthought was now one half of one of the most respected safety duos in football, right next to Budda Baker. Arizona had seen enough. In September of 2022, they paid a 3-year extension worth up to $40 million with $24.5 million guaranteed. The kid who entered the league through a side window was now a multimillionaire that his team was building around, locked in next to Budda Baker in what a lot of people call the best safety duo in the league. And after he got paid, Jalen made it clear that nothing was going to change. He said the money did not really change much. He still had that chip on his shoulder, and he was still going to go out there and do what he does. His head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, saw the whole arc for what it was. Kingsbury said that to be drafted in the 5th round of the supplemental draft, end up starting that year, and just keep getting better and better, it was a tremendous story. He said he could not be happier or prouder. And here's the cruel irony of those Arizona years. The better Jalen got, the worse the team around him became. He kept stacking seasons, kept picking off some of the best quarterbacks in the league, guys like Matthew Stafford and CJ Stroud. He kept forcing fumbles and taking the ball away. He became one of the defenders you could always count on. But the wins dried up. Coaches got fired. Seasons collapsed. He was quietly putting together one of the best careers of any safety in football on a team that kept giving him nothing to play for. Year after year, his tape got better and his situation got worse. And as his contract wound down, the trade rumors started. After everything he had been given, Jalen Thompson found himself wondering once again if he was truly wanted. And that is what makes the Dallas move hit so different. In March of 2026, the Cowboys came calling. They were tearing their defense down to the studs and rebuilding it. And the very first outside free agent they went and got was Jalen Thompson. He was not a flyer or a backup. He was the cornerstone. 3 years, $33 million, the biggest free agent deal Dallas had handed out in over a decade to be the veteran leader of a brand new secondary. For the first time in a long time, he was not the afterthought. He was the answer. And what Jalen said about it tells you everything about what this kid was really chasing the entire time. For the past 7 years of his NFL career, he said he had felt like he was missing something. Now, finally, he felt like they had all the right pieces. The supplement that was supposed to end him is the supplemental that started him. And Jalen Thompson is living proof that sometimes the door that slams in your face is just pointing you to the window that nobody else is willing to climb through. And if you enjoyed this, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And with that, I'm out. Peace.